So second delivery of the day. Lorry's backing down now. We've got a load of oak sleepers and some sand, cement and other bits and bobs for fixing them down. And the first delivery was another 3 tons of hardcore, which I'll need to barrow over to the other side of the garden. Hopefully they're going to manage to crane them over and pop them just over there. So these are the sleepers coming over, and they're 200 by 100 and they're 2.4 metre lengths. So they're 8 by 4 inches. So they're fairly rough sawn, and although they're dimensionally they're fairly exact, well within 5 to 10 mil, they are normally rough or waney edged on at least one of the corners. So you do need to pick through to find the better ones. So the first job was to dig a trench, which would be the footing or the foundation for our bottom sleeper. And the lawn is sloped, however I needed to at least dig out a trench the width of the sleeper. I've got some temporary shuttering holding back the patio sub base. That'll be removed once the sleepers are in. So I've got 100 mil of sub base scalpings going in and compacting that down with the board and the sledgehammer. And then running a string line which will show me where the outside edge of my sleeper needs to be on each course. So I needed to work out the bottom sleepers first, because I'm working my way up the slope. Started at the bottom one, but I also needed to work out what height I wanted the top one and work my way back down. So once I knew that, I could start laying in these bottom ones. Then I got mixing up some concrete, and this concrete is going to be a fairly wet mix. It's going to be used to anchor the bottom sleepers in with some coach screws, some bolts, and that is just a way of anchoring the bottom ones down without using kind of a bed of concrete, which would tend to trap water. So once I've checked for size, I'm removing the bottom ones, line them upside down, and then pilot drilling the holes for the fixings. I'm either putting one in each end, or in this case just one in the shorter length, because it will be braced by the next course of sleepers. And these are all stainless steel fixings, really important with oak. Oak will chew its way through rebar or regular steel. So a high quality stainless steel is the only thing that will resist the oak. And then just filling that hole with some of the concrete. I'm levelling everything off using the sub base, so the concrete is just for anchoring, it's not levelling it as such. And checking everything for level as I'm going. So because the top course of sleepers is going to be very visible and quite highly finished, and you know it'll be like a bench, I'm picking through and setting aside the best sleepers, and then the ones with slightly more natural edges or waney edge I'm using on the lower courses, trying to keep the best face visible. So most of it's going to be hidden because it's a retaining wall. But the front face is the nice one I want to save. So cleaning off each course as I go, and then sitting them on, and it speeds up a lot. Once you've got those foundation sleepers in, this gets a lot quicker and things begin to take shape. Mind your fingers, these are heavy, learnt the hard way. And then a heavy sledgehammer or a lump hammer is the best way to just tap things in position, make them flush, and then I'm drilling and screwing each course as I go. And I'm fixing with stainless steel screws, again, this is something I learned as I went. They do shear, as you saw there. They shear pretty quickly and easily, so you do need to kind of screw them in a steady but constant speed. Right, as soon as you stop and try and start again, that's when you get problems. Now, because I'm not going for a really rustic look, I'm trying to make these as nice and tight as possible. I'm planing any of the rough parts of the cut so that they sit nice and tight together. The oak will naturally shrink, but I want to reduce the amount of gaps that's going to appear. So if I start flush on all these butt joints, then they should shrink much more evenly and not open up too much of a gap. So the screws are more for kind of holding them in position rather than strength. Obviously they do add strength, but I'm going to be driving some oak rods, some oak dowel all the way through the sleepers, which will be the main source of the strength. And I'll do that in the next video. But so these are more for locating. And then knocking back any of the high spots before I put the next course on top. Otherwise you end up with the sleepers rocking and not sitting tight on each other. So I'm finally on the top course of sleepers here. The sub base below is pretty much level with the bottom of the top sleeper. That means that when the patio and mortar bed is put on the patio, it'll bring it up almost flush to the top of the top sleeper. So I'm measuring up each of the smaller sections ready to be cut. And you can cut with a circular saw, or of course you can cut with a handsaw. They're not that hard to work with, green oak. I had the chainsaw and that tended to be fairly effective. It's obviously quick, and providing you've got a good eye, you can cut them fairly square. So I'm just marking on my lines, and then I'm doing it, you know, by eye. So if you get above it, you can look down and just take it steady, and just make sure you're not going to cut into the sleeper below. And then checking those for square, and again I can knock that down with a sharp plane if needed. So I ended up going 4 sleepers high at the tall end, and you can see here how I've crossed them over like brickwork, alternating the courses, and that really adds strength. If you can put a right angle, a corner in your retaining wall or a sleeper wall, that will give you the strength more than anything. So a little bit of persuasion. As I said, I'm trying to get these really tight to start with, or really flush, you know, and exact. And once it's in, it's a much smarter way of doing it than leaving big gaps in between. So more screwing. These are not the top sleepers down this end yet. When it comes to the top sleepers, I'm not using any fixings on the top surface. So you can see here I'm putting them in at an angle, almost like pocket screws. And that again is just for locating them, making sure they don't move. So I'm doing that where it's going to be hidden by the patio. And the last couple of sleepers going in to finish the top course. And again, knocking back any high spots as I go. So I'm going to wrap it up there for the day. It was a lot slower than I thought. I spent probably about 6 hours on this. It's just having that sloping ground makes things quite tricky. I think the bolts in the bottom, using those stainless steel bolts, sat into a small kind of bed of concrete, will be fine. These things weigh so much anyway that that's only just adding a little bit of a security at the bottom. Those stainless steel screws, again, I've done 6 or 8 per sleeper, and they seem to be kind of clamping everything nice and tight. Also backfilled the trench now, so it's pretty much even everywhere. Got one more day with the plate compactor, so tomorrow I'll run that over once these have all gone. It's solid overnight. 2 pieces to finish off, one to go in here and another down the far end, and I've got some beds. If I've got enough sleepers left, I'm going to make a raised bed along that wall there. There's one more job to do, which is probably just belts and braces, but I'm going to drive an oak dowel, or 2 in the end of each sleeper, all the way through to fix everything together. And then I'm also going to finish these, rather than kind of leaving them really rustic, I'm going to take them back to a smooth finish, run a router on the edges, and then use a UV oil. So I'm going to cover that in the next video, so make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for that next one when we'll be looking at that. So thanks for watching. Remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time.